Coming up on Locked On Yankees, we're celebrating CC Sabathia and Ichiro Suzuki getting into the Hall of Fame.
You are Locked On Yankees, your daily New York Yankees podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Yankees, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. I'm Stacey Gotsoulias. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. You download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time. With me, as usual, my co-host, Brian McKeon. Brian.
Stacey, big day in Yankee land.
Yeah. Before we get started, don't forget, subscribe to Locked On Yankees on whichever podcasting platform you prefer. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube, like our videos, hit the bell so you're notified when our videos go live, and leave comments too. Even though we're afraid to read them, leave them anyway. On today's show, we're going to talk all about the Hall of Fame. CC's in, Ichiro is in, Billy Wagner's in, who didn't make it in, and looking ahead to 2026, which doesn't seem very good. That class does not seem good. But let's start with CC Sabathia, because this was, I don't know why, I saw the clip of him being called and brought a tear to my eye for some reason. I was just so happy for him.
Yeah, one of the better guys in all of baseball, right? I mean, so insanely highly talked about by every single teammate he's had. No one has a bad word to say about the guy, and no one should. I mean, he was the ultimate teammate, really. I mean, in the period of time between Derek Jeter retiring and Aaron Judge being named the captain of the Yankees, you could have made a case that CC Sabathia could have been the captain of the Yankees. That's how legendary of a figure that he was, especially in that clubhouse and around the league. Well respected. The third all-time black pitcher to be able to have 3,000 strikeouts, which is incredible. One of the greatest pitchers in the history of Major League Baseball, in my opinion, especially with the accolades that he has: a World Series champion, a Cy Young winner, signed one of the most lucrative deals, so he helped out the players when it comes to the Players Association and moving the contracts forward. Just really an all-class, all-world type of player, and I can't think of a player in the last couple years that is more deserving where it comes to Hall of Fame player and Hall of Fame person to get into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. As you said, 3,093 strikeouts. So it makes him one of 19 people to surpass 3,000 strikeouts. He ranks third among lefties behind Randy Johnson and Steve Carlton. I mean, that's just...
listen to those names. That's who he's behind. It's incredible.
Yeah. He was 251, 161 with a 3.74 ERA. It was his first time on the ballot. He earned 86.8% of the vote. As you said, he won the 2007 AL Cy Young with Cleveland. He won the World Series with the Yankees. He made the All-Star team 6 times in 19 seasons. And everyone always talks about it, but we have to talk about it. That down the stretch moment with Milwaukee, the way he pitched that team into the playoffs, just amazing. And watching that from afar, because, we knew about CC Sabathia because the Yankees faced him when he was with Cleveland. And to see him do that and to know that he was going to be a free agent, I was like, oh, yes, bring him to me.
It's funny. You've mentioned, too, when we've had this Hall of Fame debate before over, certain players you can make a case for legendary postseason moments they've had and coming up at the biggest moment for teams. Like there is I don't know what it is, but I guess we'll call it the it factor. There is a factor, though, when it comes to sports and being able to perform at the biggest and highest of moments. And some players have it and some players don't. And CC Sabathia certainly had it. That Milwaukee stretch when he, for lack of a better word, dragged them into the postseason.
On his back. Yeah.
Yeah. And, CC Sabathia, that run was pitching on 3 days rest.
Yes.
And, it's one thing to be pitching on 3 days rest to get into the postseason. But Stacey, it's a whole other thing to be pitching on 3 days rest when you're going into a contract year. Not going into a contract year, going into becoming a free agent. Remember, he was traded at that deadline because he's an expiring contract, and obviously Cleveland had no desire to pay him. But Milwaukee traded for him to A, try and get into the postseason, but B, they didn't care if he destroyed his arm going into that postseason. Kind of like a lot to the Cubs in 2016 with Aroldis Chapman. They didn't care if they blew his arm apart. They weren't going to re-sign him anyway. And Milwaukee had that same feeling towards CC. And he was willing to pitch on 3 days rest to get that team into the postseason, not caring that he, had over $100 million resting on that left arm. Because if his arm gives out in that when on those 3 days rest, there's a really good chance CC Sabathia, doesn't ever get that deal the Yankees gave him. So the fact that he was willing to do that, ultimate gamer. There's two examples in his career. There's that moment, and then there's the year where he was going to retire against Tampa. If you want to bring up that story too, because that is one of the more incredible teammate moments too.
Yeah, the Yankees in Tampa had some chippy moments there, and CC Sabathia with a bonus coming up. He needed to hit an innings limit to receive a bonus, and he defended one of his teammates and got thrown out of a game. Now, the Yankees ended up giving him that bonus anyway. Mm-hmm. The fact that he went into that not knowing if they would and just didn't care because he wanted to stick up for his teammate and fight back against a team that was, they were having issues that season. And that's one of my all-time CC moments, favorite CC moments. I also loved that one fight against Boston. Was it 2018?
Was it the Tyler Austin fight?
I believe so.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because Stanton was there. Yeah. And CC was basically like, David Ortiz ran out and he ran after David Ortiz.
Mm-hmm. The biggest guy on the other team. He had no problem doing that.
So another Fenway moment. Ryan Dempster purposely hits A-Rod when he first came back from his hip thing, and then he was going to be suspended thing. And CC, Girardi had to hold him back because he was like, what are you doing? It was, and the funniest thing about that whole night, of all people to defend A-Rod that night, Curt Schilling in the ESPN booth was like, okay, you threw at him and you missed him. Don't throw at him 4 times. It's obvious you're trying to hit him. Like it's okay. But CC he didn't care. He defended his teammates no matter what. And that's why his teammates love him so much.
The ultimate team player.
Yeah. A lot of people made comments. I'm not going to read them all because some of them are really long, but the usual suspects. So Aaron Judge said something, Derek Jeter, Jorge Posada, Joe Girardi, Brian Cashman, Hal Steinbrenner, and then Hideki Matsui. I have to put this up on screen. I love this so much. I actually giggled when I read it. CC, congratulations on your election to the Hall of Fame. You're a great ace pitcher, a great teammate, and truly a wonderful human being. Before you came to the Yankees, I played against you many times and couldn't come close to hitting your pitches. So when you came to the Yankees, you have no idea how happy and relieved I was to not have to face you anymore. Congratulations on a truly great and historic career. First of all, I love that Hideki Matsui is that funny, but that's what happens in baseball. Like when you face certain guys and they come to your team, like the whole Roger Clemens thing too. Like the Yankees didn't like facing him because he always hit them. And that first day where I think it was Jeter and Knobloch came out and they were wearing the catchers, the tools of ignorance going into the batting cages against Roger Clemens. So
it's incredible. It's incredible. You can see by how many people that come out publicly and talk for CC, just on his career, how great he was. Another hidden thing too that people don't realize too, Stacey, 251 wins in a career in the modern era is unbelievable. In an era when pitchers are not going deep into games, are not getting you, if you have a pitcher now that goes 6 innings, you're like, wow, he gives you length.
It's so funny.
And CC came up right to that era, and especially towards the end of his career where, he became, a guy that was in the last couple of years, he was giving you 4 innings on a good day. He was not giving you a lot of length late in his career, and he still managed to win 251 games in his career. I mean, that's iconic for him. I believe, too, back to that Tampa story series, because Gardner told a funny story, which a guy who hasn't talked publicly in a really long time, gave out a story that when he was with the Yankees for that Tampa game, because Gardner was on that team, and he was talking in the clubhouse about that. I think it was Gary Sanchez who was hit. I'm not 100%, but I believe it was Gary Sanchez who was hit. And CC said in the dugout, I'm going to hit the first batter in the next inning. And apparently Brett Gardner went up to him and said, don't do that. We need you for this game. You have the bonus coming. He was 2 innings away from earning $500,000.
Yeah.
And Gardner was like, don't. They all knew he had the bonus available. Don't get out. Don't do. And CC was like, he said, Brett, I'm going to hit him. I'm going to hit the first guy. And Gardner was like, no, don't. Kept fighting with him. And he said, I'm telling you, I'm going to hit the first guy, and you better be prepared to run into the infield and fight. And that's what he said to Gardner, and Gardner was like, all right, whatever. And then lo and behold, first batter out there, plunks him, gets thrown out of the game. puts that money on sacrifice. Apparently, Amber Sabathia was furious when she found out that he did that, but the Yankees made it right and gave him that money anyway. But it's an all-time legendary teammate kind of story.
$500,000, and he didn't care because he just wanted to defend his teammate. That's amazing.
Yeah, it wasn't. Listen. That story I think gets a little overblown because of what $500,000 means to us, even though CC was coming off of a $180 million contract.
I know, but $500,000 is still like, he has 4 kids, so that's that's college funds. That's and one last thing before we break, I just have to mention this, and then we'll go to segment 2. When they called him, 3 of his kids were there.
Mm-hmm.
One of his sons is in college, away at college, so he wasn't there. And I realized that Carter was there. Carter was the World Series baby. Sabathia and Teixeira both had World Series babies. They were both born summer of 2010. And it hit me that these children are turning 15. And when I saw him, I was like, that's a soon to be 15-year-old. That is a big boy. So yeah, everyone.
His one son is a terrific baseball player, apparently, too.
Yeah.
His first son, little CC, CC Jr., whatever, he is huge.
We'll go to the next segment, and I'll tell you a quick story about CC and his son. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button on our videos, hit the notification so you know when our videos go up. You can also join the Locked On Yankees Insiders Club. The link is in the description. You'll get texts from us, text us questions, comments, reactions to trades and signings. During the season, we send out lineups, roster moves, breaking news, so you don't have to check social media. There's a 14-day free trial. So coming up next, another former Yankee, not for as long as CC, but another former Yankee, Ichiro Suzuki, makes it to the Hall of Fame.
In sports, having a winning strategy is everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, the World Series, and the Olympics. The same goes for life. Having a strategy like life insurance from SelectQuote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. SelectQuote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. As one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, they've helped 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. What sets SelectQuote apart from their personal touch? Unlike their brokers that offer one-size-fits-all policies, their licensed agents tailor coverage to fit your unique needs. If you're in good health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage of up to $5 million with no medical exam required. It's even more affordable than you think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 per month. Get the right life insurance for you for less at SelectQuote.com/locked-on. Go to SelectQuote.com/locked-on today to get started. That's SelectQuote.com/locked-on. SelectQuote. They shop, you save. And thanks again, everyone, for making Locked On Yankees your first listen. Remember that every Friday is Fan Mail Friday. You can leave questions underneath our videos during the week, or you can join the Locked On Yankees Insiders Club to get top priority on Fan Mail Friday. That link is in our description. So Stacey, another, Stacey was a very, very, very deserving Hall of Famer, but candidacy for one of the most deserving Hall of Fame players of all time, Ichiro Suzuki, also gets in. There was one jackass that had to not give him a vote. I can't wait till that.
I told you. I knew someone was going to screw that up. I knew it. I knew he wasn't going to be unanimous.
You know what the funny part? You know what the funny part about the Ichiro one is, to not make him unanimous, is the complaint that you always heard about why guys weren't given unanimous votes is the writers would always say, oh, well, Ted Williams wasn't unanimous, so Ichiro doesn't go in unanimous.
Right.
Well, so blank doesn't go in unanimous. Ichiro's the one guy that you could actually put those numbers against DiMaggio and Ted Williams and all those guys, and you could still debate Ichiro as unanimous as a Hall of Famer. That's how good his numbers are. So not having Ichiro in is psychotic. But Stacey, speaking of CC too, another teammate of CC Sabathia's for 3 years, well, 2.5. Yeah. As the Yankees acquired him at the 2012 deadline. Remember, the Yankees were in Seattle when they acquired him.
That was the weirdest. That was, let's see, when was the Andy Pettitte making a comeback thing? Was that earlier that season?
Yeah.
When they announced it, right? Mm-hmm. And then Jack Curry's like, oh, the Yankees made a trade and they're getting it. We're like, what? Because that's when Twitter was like really like, before it became a cesspool, and it was really all about like I was on baseball Twitter. I was really deep into it. I just started writing about the Yankees on a blog, and I was about a year into it at that point. And I was like, well, it's too late for April Fools, right? And I'm like, of all people, like when Ichiro Suzuki first came to the United States, if you had told me that first year that the Yankees were going to trade for him at one point, I would have been like, yeah, okay. Okay. I just remember that day so vividly because they were in Seattle. He had to go from the home clubhouse to the visiting clubhouse. He had to, it was just one of the most bizarre days in recent memory, like within the last 20 years.
And they played an afternoon game in Seattle too for that game too. So I mean, the news broke sometime in the afternoon because that game went on at 4:00 in the afternoon. It was a very weird afternoon game. Stacey, what people don't realize is nowadays players aren't traded that late in their career as often. Ichiro was 38 years old in midseason when Seattle traded him to the Yankees. It was the first team other than Seattle they played for. Stacey, he played in 67 games for the Yankees that year and hit 322.
Yeah.
I mean, he is an incredible all-time player. His career batting average is 311. And that's including, years he played until he was 45 years old, Stacey. So you're including that, and he still had 311 in his career. After that 322 with the Yankees, he had 262, 284. Then went to Miami, he hit 282. Get this, in his age 42 season, Stacey, he hit 291. I mean, this guy was an unbelievable all-time great player. One of the only players in Major League history you could really ever debate. Maybe Ohtani will be one of these guys, but definitely the first of it. That of a player that could be in the Hall of Fame for two separate careers in two separate leagues. If you take Ichiro's Japanese league numbers and take Ichiro's American league numbers, he has, U.S. league numbers, Major League Baseball league numbers. Ichiro has more hits than Pete Rose. That's how good Ichiro Suzuki was. Look, the amount of years that he has, Stacey, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The first 10 years of his career in the United States, he has over 200 hits.
Yeah.
That is insane. His rookie year when he gets here, 242 hits in a season. That is remarkable. 56 stolen bases. And the craziest part about his career, Stacey, only 117 career home runs. Not remotely a power hitter, but a damn good hitter and a damn good fielder.
The thing I learned about him that I don't think I knew during his career was that his father made him bat lefty. He was a righty. His father made him bat lefty when he was a kid because he knew with his speed and with his size that it'd be quicker for him to get to the base from that side of the plate. And they were showing highlights on MLB Network last night, showcasing how quick he would get out of the box and make it down to first base. They also jokingly highlighted how many of his hits bounced 54 times before they made it out, because he was just it was basically like he was swinging a baton and just hitting the ball, and it just went anywhere. And, he wasn't exactly hitting the ball. It wasn't like Giancarlo Stanton hitting the ball, but he was hitting it all the time. That's why his average was so high. But I saw him, and I love this. I've seen so many, fantastic playoff games, some cool regular season games. I was at a Sunday night game in August 2012 when Ichiro first came over, and he hit 2 home runs against the Red Sox. The guy who didn't really hit home runs, but he could. He always said he could if he wanted to, but he just preferred hitting the ball. Hit 2 home runs that night. And I was like, this is the best thing ever. I can't believe I saw Ichiro hit 2 home runs in one night.
Yeah, and one of those guys that you probably believe when he says that he could have been a whole power hitter if he wanted to. Who knows? If he came up in this era, he might have been a power hitter because they might have forced him with the launch angle to be more of a power hitter. And unbelievable. I mean, he's one of those guys too. You go down the rabbit hole of how good of a player he was, and you really realize, wow, this guy, he got to America when he was 27 years old.
Yeah.
And think about how good he was throughout his entire career. And again, underrated though, how great of a fielder he was. An unbelievable fielder and one of the best arms in the history of Major League Baseball too. Really, I want to know who the one guy is, and I would love for them to publicly ask him what's the reason. I mean, give me the argument against Ichiro Suzuki getting into the Hall of Fame.
Some people were saying that maybe it wasn't him being against Ichiro, but maybe putting other people on the ballot who didn't have as much of a chance as Ichiro, but that's also nonsense. Just put him on the ballot. He's
especially a guy like that who is, unquestionably a Hall of Famer. Like there's no debate with Ichiro. Other guys where you want to debate, and we'll get into that in the next segment of, debatable players. I don't get it. What was your CC story before we hit the break?
Oh, so my brother's an umpire, right? Mm-hmm. And so he umpires in Cooperstown for 3 weeks during the summer. They have different tournaments and stuff. And he's met a bunch of former players who coach, former players who were there with their kids. And CC's son was playing, and CC was there. And, my brother didn't want to bother him too much, but he went up to him and started talking to him. And he's like, he's such a good dude. He's really nice. And, he was talking about his son being a pretty good ball player. And I just love that my brother is able to meet people like that. But quick Ichiro story. 2013, Yankees-Dodgers were playing a series. And it was, the first game was rained out. It was like a Tuesday, Wednesday. And then the Tuesday night got rained out and Wednesday turned into a doubleheader. And I ended up going to both games. It was split, so I had to leave and come back, which was weird. But first game, I'm sitting directly behind Ichiro in section 104. That man did not stop moving. The entire time he was in the outfield, he was twisting, he was bending over, he was stretching his leg, he was constantly on the move. And as someone with ADHD who's constantly fidgeting, I was like, that's my guy.
He used to always have his legs completely spread, almost like he was doing a complete split. And he would stretch. And at 40 years old, it was like, how is he doing this? Like I couldn't do that at 15 when I was watching him, and he's doing it at 40.
Was Ichiro the last guy who was older than me to be in baseball? I'm trying to remember. I think he was. It was like him and Bartolo Colon were like the last ones who were left that were older than me and born in 1973. And when they both left, I was like, man, you'll see. Once you hit your 30s, once you hit your 30s and coaches start being younger than you, and it's like my first experience with a player being younger than me on the Yankees was Alfonso Soriano, and he's like a year younger than me because Jeter and I are the same age. So
okay.
When Soriano came up, I was like, wow, okay, someone's younger than me. This is weird. But I was only like 28 at the time. So like it wasn't, or even younger than that. So it wasn't that big a deal. Yeah, no, I was younger than that. I was like 25. But it was, when you get older and everyone starts getting younger than you, it's so depressing. But yeah, I think Ichiro was my last beacon of hope. And then it ended. But yeah, congrats to Ichiro. Congrats to CC. Congrats to Billy Wagner getting in on his last year. And we'll talk about who didn't make it, and how some of the numbers dropped off from public ballots to private ballots, because there was a big drop off for another former Yankee. We'll talk about that in a moment. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, comedy, and one of my favorite memories is going to Duran Duran shows. I've been to nearly 25 of them, and I just love seeing them live. Gametime has now made it easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Gametime Picks. The feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You know how tiring that can be. I was looking for tickets for an upcoming event. I used the Gametime app with Gametime Picks. I found really good deals, could see my seat before buying because it's a venue that I'm not that familiar with. And they have the super deal that's really impressive. It offers seats at unbeatable prices, and the all-in pricing shows you the total cost. There's no surprise fees up front. There's no surprise fees at checkout. Everything is up front. So that's the best thing about Gametime. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Why is that not working? Hold on. There we go.
Stacey, some interesting guys that didn't get in, by the way, that I would bring up. And one that made headway with numbers but didn't get in, which I found very interesting. Alex Rodriguez made a lot of improvements for his candidacy, which is weird that he even had to improve, but got a lot. Now he's on the ballot for another 6 years, I believe, which is crazy to think about. But I believe he got like 36% of the vote, which is more than he usually gets. Gut case right now, do you think he gets in or no?
No. There's going to be too many voters who are, who see the steroid thing as the worst thing in the world, even though they voted for David Ortiz. I digress. I just think it's funny. I think some of the moralizing that these guys do for certain guys, and for other guys it's okay. Just it cracks me up. I love that. I love it. But I do like the support that him and Manny are getting, because some people are of the belief that, look, yes, what they did was wrong, but there were a bunch of guys who enabled them who are in the Hall of Fame. There are a bunch of guys that you don't know who could have done stuff. There are guys that you're accusing of doing things that maybe didn't do things, but you're leaving them out of the Hall of Fame anyway because they're like steroid adjacent, you know?
Well,
Like
and Bud Selig's in, and Bud Selig allowed
yes.
it all to happen. So
yeah.
A-Rod's in order percentage years, and I remember you need 75% of the vote to get into the Hall of Fame. He has 34.3, 35.7, 34.8, 37.1. I don't know how the number ever gets lower, because who is the person that decides A-Rod is a Hall of Famer in 2016, and then in 2017 he's not a Hall? I'm using these numbers as examples, right. But who is the person? Well, okay, A-Rod retired in 2016, so let's use the actual numbers. He became a Hall of Famer for the first time. That means in 2021's class. So who is the person that decided in 2021 he is a Hall of Famer? Then in 2022, he's not a Hall of Famer. Then in 2023, he now is a Hall of Famer. And then in 2024, he's now, again, not a Hall of Famer. How do your numbers flip-flop like that? It makes genuinely no sense to me.
There are also voters who don't use all 10. They believe in the small hall, so they'll take some guys out from previous years and get guys in that they want to get in right away, kind of thing. So, like, they'll vote for only 4 or 5, and you'll see some guys get removed. The thing that I find interesting is how Omar Vizquel's numbers went up from last year.
Mm-hmm.
And publicly and privately, they went up really high. I know he was calling people and trying to, like, because guys do that. Yeah. They campaign for themselves. But the Omar Vizquel stuff, just why? Why are you? No.
Yeah, if you and to me again, like we said this before, if you have to campaign for yourself to get in, then you're not a Hall of Famer. If you have to go out there and do a campaign trail and you know, give writers a call on their birthday so they feel special that they got a call from you, then you don't need to. Then you're not a Hall of Famer. Just very interesting. I often wonder if the steroid. I'm of the belief that the steroid guys deserve to get in, but I often believe whether or not they will get in. And you know, A-Rod being as low as he is, and you know, it does feel like, you know, will they? He's got 6 years to go, so who knows how much more will go up? I think 35% is more than most steroid guys were getting in the years past. That's what's funny about it. I don't know how. Again, some steroid guys are, you know, getting 7% of the vote, 8% of the vote, and then A-Rod's at 37% of the vote. I don't understand how that works. If they both did steroids, and if you keep them out for that reason, then how is the number so much higher?
It's because of the whole Alex Rodriguez probably would have been fine without the steroids, and he was still a really good player, kind of thing.
Yeah, you're right. It's crazy. The whole argument is just wild. Carlos Beltran misses just barely of getting in, but like you said, he's probably going to get in next year. That means because, which again is another example of why this is all crazy town, because I don't understand how he's not a Hall of Famer this year, but he's a Hall of Famer next year. Next year he'll get in because there's less guys vote. No, I know the reason. I'm just saying but it's ridiculous.
No, but I'm going to tell you, someone had a reasoning which I thought was really it made me roll my eyes watching last night. They asked Tom Verducci why he voted for Beltran this year and why he didn't last year. And he said, oh, well, you know, I penalized him for the cheating scandal. Okay. So it was, the cheating scandal was bad last year, but now it's okay. Fine. Now it's okay. Okay. So like,
he's still like, whether he cheated, he still cheated. Like, it doesn't matter.
And then he did it after his career. It's like, yeah, but the guy who read the Hall of Fame results, basically was like, they're voted in on integrity, this, that. It shouldn't just be your playing career, because we're seeing stuff coming out about people. We're not going to talk about it today because I'm going to get very angry if I talk about it. But a story came out about a Hall of Famer from our team, an awful, awful, awful story. And you need to look at people in their post-baseball careers. That's part of the reason why Curt Schilling didn't make the Hall of Fame. It really is. And I know it's playing career, but do you want some of these guys to be honored when they're doing crappy things after their career? No.
Yeah. And Carlos Beltran's a weird one. I don't even know if you look at Carlos Beltran's whole career and you view him as a surefire Hall of Famer. That's what's crazy to me. Carlos Beltran feels like he's going to get in because he was so well liked throughout his entire career. Because everyone did. Everyone liked him. And I think he's a good player, but I don't know if he's a surefire Hall of Famer.
Like I said a few days ago, there's that there's a range, and he's in that range, but he's probably at the lower end of that range. So he's one of those guys that, yeah, he could be Hall of Fame. He's not one of those guys like, yeah, he's definitely a Hall of Fame guy. That's
it's
just
very
how...
interesting. It's very interesting. And I just think, again, we're going to have this argument, I'm sure, for years down the road on this show, but it's so crazy to me. Like that Tom Verducci thing is ridiculous. And
Well,
also
people did it with Schilling too, because that year that he wore, no, he didn't wear it. He quote tweeted someone that had a shirt that said "Rope Journalist Tree," and baseball writers were rightly upset about the fact that he was joking about lynching reporters. So they didn't vote for him, because that happened like before the Hall of Fame vote, if I'm not mistaken. Like it was around like election time, whatever year it was, maybe 2016.
Sure.
And so a lot of people didn't vote for him. And then the next year, those same people voted for him again. I'm like, why? It's okay now? Like, is there a statute of limitations on your outrage about him calling for the death of journalists? Like, what is...
And you don't, and again, like we've said before too, you don't get to create your own year of punishment, your own, you don't create where the punishment exists. So like keeping him off your ballot for 1 year, well, who makes you the arbiter of that? Who makes you the arbiter of when you get to punish somebody? It makes absolutely no sense. And again, we've been over it a million times. If you're a Hall of Famer, you're a Hall of Famer. There's no, if you did something horrible that should keep you out of the Hall of Fame, in anyone's opinion, then that thing that you did is not, there's no penance to it. There's no forgiveness to it. If you did it, you did it. And if you didn't do it, you didn't do it. But that doesn't go away. You don't serve your 1 year penalty and then that, he did it. He sat his moment in the corner. If you did something so heinous, you don't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame, then you never deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. You don't get forgiveness to get into the Hall of Fame. And if there's anyone who's done enough to be forgiven in around Major League Baseball to get into the Hall of Fame, it's Alex Rodriguez. Because Alex Rodriguez is, say what you want about how Major League Baseball feels about him. When you watch big baseball games, find me a commercial where Alex Rodriguez isn't involved in the commercial, whether it's a car company or a sports drink or anything like that. He's got multiple corporations that are sponsored by Major League Baseball. A-Rod, does the World Series pre and post game show with Fox. So he's everywhere when it comes to baseball. He's all over the All-Star game, the World Series, the playoffs. So they've clearly brought him back in. So they clearly love A-Rod as a person. If you want to talk about doing penance, A-Rod's definitely done his penance when it comes to baseball. So where is the line, Stacey? Where is the line where if you've done something bad, you either get in or you don't get in? How many years do you have to wait? It makes no sense. And that's the point that you're making, which I think is brilliant. We have these writers who have, there's nothing justifying whether they should be, holding up this sacred ground of the Hall of Fame. What makes them the arbiter of whose crime is punished? Apparently steroids is the worst crime you could ever do. But, being an open racist like Ty Cobb, you're good to get in. It makes no sense to me. It really doesn't.
One last thing before we go. Years ago, what year was it? I think it was when A-Rod was coming back from everything, right? So 2015?
Yeah.
There was an article by a baseball writer that compared A-Rod to Whitey Bulger. If you don't know who Whitey Bulger is, Whitey Bulger was a mobster who killed people. And this article compared Alex Rodriguez using steroids to Whitey Bulger. So that shows you where some writers feel, or how some writers feel about steroids. They literally equate it to murder.
Yep.
That's a great note to end the show on. Hold on. Let's just look at comments because, hello, everyone. How are we all doing? Happy January 22nd. We're almost there. It's almost February. We're so close. February is at the end of next week. Like we're almost there.
We really are.
And it snowed in Florida. It snowed in New Orleans and South Carolina and all these places. Like, oh yeah, we're ready for spring training. Definitely. So thank you for making Locked On Yankees your first listen today. For your second listen to Locked On MLB. Baseball guru Sully brings you a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every rumor and story throughout the baseball offseason, which is almost over. You can find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. I'd like to shout out our insiders, our everydayers. We have everydayers who are here listening to us no matter what time we put up the show. We put it up at 3 a.m. They're in the chat on YouTube. If we do a live stream, they're here. Just amazing. We love all of you. We love the support. We're looking forward to this next season of covering the Yankees, and we're looking forward to hitting 10,000 subscribers. We're closing in on 8,300. So anything you could do to help us to get to 10,000, we would really appreciate that. So that'll do it again for this edition of Locked On Yankees. I'm Stacey Gotsoulias.
And I'm Brian McKeon. We'll catch you guys tomorrow.